They thought they were buying themselves one more day when the blizzard trapped them inside a Cold War fortress buried in the mountains. But what Josh and Kate really found 7 levels beneath the snow wasn't shelter. It was $360 million in forgotten government assets, classified documents that could rewrite history, and one dead man's final plea that would force 2 honest people in their 70s to make the choice of their lives. This is the true story of an elderly couple who stumbled into the biggest government secret since Watergate and had to decide between survival and integrity when no one was watching. Before we dive into the story, make sure to smash subscribe, because tomorrow we have an extra special story for you that will blow your mind. The dashboard clock read 3:47 when Kate Harper first noticed the sky. She was riding passenger in their old Honda CR-V, the one with the torn seat cover and the heater that only worked on the highest setting. Her husband Josh was driving, hands at 10 and 2 like he'd done for 49 years of holding a steering wheel. They were somewhere in the Cascade Mountains of Washington state, 2 hours from the nearest town worth calling a town, on what was supposed to be their dream anniversary trip. 47 years they'd been married. 47 years of factory shifts and night classes, of raising 3 kids in a 2-bedroom house with 1 bathroom, of medical bills paid in installments and Christmas presents layaway. Josh had worked at the same manufacturing plant for 31 years until it closed. Kate had been a school secretary for 26, answering phones and bandaging scraped knees for wages that barely covered groceries. They'd never been people who dreamed big. Couldn't afford to. But when Josh turned 72 last March and Kate 70 this past August, their daughter Emma had sat them down and said, "Mom, Dad, when are you going to do something for yourselves? Just once?" So they'd planned this. 1 week in a cabin rental near Stevens Pass. Nothing fancy. $200 a night off-season. They'd drive up the coast, see the mountains, maybe spot an eagle. Kate had packed sandwiches in a cooler. Josh brought his father's old binoculars with the cracked left lens. They were happy. Genuinely, quietly happy in the way people are when they've survived everything life threw at them and come out holding hands on the other side. But now Kate was watching the sky, and the happiness was curdling into something else. "Josh," she said softly, "look at those clouds." He glanced up through the windshield. The clouds weren't grey. They were the color of old bruises, purple-black and swollen, rolling over the peaks like something alive and angry. The afternoon light had gone strange, too bright and too dim at the same time. "Weather report didn't say anything about snow," Josh said. "When did you last check?" "This morning." Kate pulled out her phone. No signal. She held it up toward the window, tried again. Nothing. "We should turn back," she said. Josh nodded, already slowing down, looking for a place wide enough to turn around. The road they were on was barely 2 lanes, carved into the mountainside with nothing but a few feet of gravel and a very long drop on Kate's side. Pine trees pressed in close on Josh's side, thick and dark. He found a small pull-out and carefully maneuvered the CR-V around. That's when the first flakes started to fall. Within minutes, it wasn't snow. It was a wall, the kind of snow that erases the world, that turns day into twilight, that makes you forget which direction is forward. Josh leaned over the steering wheel, squinting, wipers on full blast and barely making a dent. "I can't see the road," he said. Kate's hands were gripped tight in her lap. "Just go slow, follow the shoulder." But there was no shoulder anymore, just white. The temperature had dropped so fast the windshield was icing on the outside, even with the defroster screaming. Josh's knuckles were white on the wheel. They crawled forward. 5 miles per hour, then 3. The wind hit the CR-V in gusts that shoved them sideways. Kate could feel her heart hammering against her ribs. They'd lived through bad weather before, Midwest tornadoes when they were young, ice storms that knocked out power for a week. But this felt different. This felt like nature had decided they didn't belong here. There, Kate said suddenly, pointing. Through the swirling snow, barely visible, a shape, massive, angular, concrete. Josh stopped the car, both of them leaning forward, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. It was a building, if you could call it that, more like a structure. Brutalist architecture, all hard edges and geometric planes, the kind of thing that looked like it had been poured rather than built. Multiple levels stacked and offset, creating deep shadows even in the whiteout. It was covered in snow, drifts piled against the walls, icicles hanging from the overhangs like teeth. "What is that?" Kate whispered. "I don't know. Looks military." "Out here? Cold War, maybe? They built stuff in mountains, bunkers and testing facilities, and—" He trailed off. Another gust of wind rocked the CRV. The engine sputtered. "Josh, we can't stay in the car," Kate said. "If we get stuck out here—" She didn't finish the sentence. They both knew how it ended. Josh looked at her. His face was weathered from 72 years of life, creased and spotted, but his eyes were still sharp. Still the same eyes that had looked at her across a high school cafeteria in 1973 and decided she was worth knowing. "Okay," he said. "We try to get inside. Wait out the worst of it." They bundled up. Josh had his heavy parka. Kate wrapped a scarf around her face until only her eyes showed. They each grabbed a small bag from the back. Kate took the cooler with their sandwiches. Josh grabbed the emergency kit he'd insisted on packing. Flashlight, first aid, Mylar blankets, the kind of things practical men carried just in case. The cold hit them like a fist when they opened the doors. Kate gasped, the air so frigid it burned her lungs. The wind was screaming, a high-pitched shriek that made talking impossible. Josh grabbed her hand, and they pushed forward, leaning into the storm, boots sinking into snow already a foot deep. The structure loomed ahead of them. Up close, it was even more imposing. The concrete was stained and weathered, but solid. No windows on this side, just walls. They stumbled along the perimeter, searching. Kate's face was already numb. Her fingers ached inside her gloves. Then Josh pulled her left toward a recessed area. There was a door, metal, industrial, with a heavy handle. He grabbed it and pulled, locked. He tried again, throwing his weight into it. Nothing. Kate's heart sank. They were going to die out here. 70 and 72 years old, frozen to death 20 feet from shelter because of a locked door. But Josh wasn't giving up. He moved along the wall, feeling with his gloved hands, and found another door, smaller, half buried in a snowdrift. He kicked at the snow, clearing it, then grabbed the handle. It turned. The door swung inward with a groan of old hinges. Warm air, or at least warmer air, rushed out. They stumbled inside and Josh shoved the door closed behind them. The sound of the wind cut off like a switch had been flipped. They stood in the sudden silence, breathing hard, ice already melting on their faces and dripping onto the floor. "Oh my God," Kate said, unwinding her scarf. "Oh my God." Josh pulled off his gloves, flexed his fingers. "You okay?" "I think so. You?" "Yeah." They looked around. They were in a corridor. Concrete walls, concrete floor, concrete ceiling. A few dim lights overhead, the kind of emergency lighting that runs on backup power, casting everything in a pale yellow glow. The air smelled stale but not rotten, dry, climate-controlled. "This place still has power," Josh said quietly. They walked forward slowly. The corridor opened into a larger space, some kind of receiving area or checkpoint. There was a desk, a chair, a bulletin board on the wall still covered in faded papers. Kate stepped closer and looked at the notices. Safety protocols, duty rosters, a calendar frozen on February 1984. "Josh," she breathed, "this is from 1984. He came to stand beside her. 42 years ago. "Why is it still here? Why hasn't anyone cleaned this out?" Josh shook his head. They moved deeper. The facility was vast. They found a cafeteria with tables still set up, trays stacked on a counter, a recreation room with a pool table and a television that probably weighed 200 pounds. Everything was covered in dust but preserved, like the crew had just walked away mid-shift and never came back. This was a military installation, Josh said, pointing to insignias on the wall. No specific branch markers, just generic government seals. They found the living quarters on the second level. Small rooms with bunk beds, footlockers, personal items still scattered around. In one room, Kate found a photograph tacked to the wall. 4 men in uniform, arms around each other, grinning. Young men. Boys, really. She wondered what happened to them. The heating system was working. The facility was actually warm. As the ice melted off their clothes and their bodies thawed, exhaustion hit them both like a wave. "We should find somewhere to sleep," Kate said. "Wait for the storm to pass." Josh nodded. They found a room with a single bed rather than bunks. The mattress was old but dry. Kate spread out one of the mylar blankets from their emergency kit, and they both sat down heavily. "This is insane," Josh said. "I know. We're sleeping in an abandoned military base from the Cold War." Kate laughed, a little hysterical. "Happy anniversary." He smiled, reached over and took her hand. 47 years. Not bad for a girl who said yes to a guy who couldn't even afford a real diamond. It was a real diamond. It was just very small. It was a chip. It was perfect. They sat quietly for a moment. Outside they could hear the wind howling, but in here they were safe, warm, alive. "We should explore a little," Josh said. "Make sure this place is actually safe. No gas leaks or structural damage or anything." Kate knew he was right, but also she knew her husband. Josh had been an engineer at the plant. His brain didn't turn off when he saw problems. He needed to understand things, to take them apart and see how they worked. "Okay," she said, "but we stay together." They spent the next hour walking through the facility. It was enormous, level after level connected by stairs and corridors that seemed to go on forever. They found offices filled with filing cabinets, a medical bay with examination tables and glass cabinets full of supplies, a communications room with old radio equipment and what looked like early computer terminals, the kind with green text on black screens. And everywhere, documents, papers, files. Most of it was mundane, maintenance logs, supply requisitions, duty schedules. But some of it made Josh stop and read more carefully. "Kate, look at this." He was holding a folder marked Facility Overview. Inside were blueprints. The installation was built into the mountain itself, 7 levels deep. They were currently on level 2. 7 levels, Kate said. "We've only seen 2. The stairs we found only go down 1 more level, but according to this, there are 4 more below that." "How do you access them?" Josh flipped through the pages. "Elevator. There's a main elevator shaft that runs the full depth." They found it 20 minutes later, a heavy steel door with a card reader beside it. The reader's light was dark. "No power," Josh said. "Or you need a key card. Or both." They kept exploring. Kate's feet were starting to hurt. They'd been walking for over 2 hours now, and she wasn't 20 anymore. Hell, she wasn't 50 anymore. But something kept pulling her forward. This place felt important, significant, like they'd stumbled into something that mattered. In an office on level 3, she found the journal. It was sitting on a desk, not filed away or hidden, just sitting there like someone had been writing in it and stepped out for coffee. The cover was plain black, the pages yellowed but intact. She opened it carefully. The handwriting inside was precise, military trained. The first entry was dated January 3, 1984. "Commander William Hayes, Facility Log, Day 1 of Transition Protocol. The order came down yesterday. Full evacuation by end of February. Classified materials to be relocated to an undisclosed location. We're to sanitize the facility and lock it down. 42 years of work, and they're just shutting us down like we never existed." Kate's hands trembled as she turned the pages. Josh came to stand behind her, reading over her shoulder. Hayes wrote almost daily. His entries started professional, but gradually became more personal, more frustrated. January 15th. The trucks were supposed to be here yesterday to start moving materials. No one showed. Command says there's been a delay. We're still on schedule for evacuation, but nothing's moving. The men are getting restless. February 1st. Still no trucks. I made 17 calls today. No one will give me a straight answer. They keep saying the materials are classified and the transport requires special authorization. But that authorization never comes. I'm starting to think we've been forgotten. February 10th. I broke protocol today. I went down to level 7. I needed to see it with my own eyes, to confirm what we're leaving behind. It's all still there. Every last dollar, every document, every asset we've recovered over 23 years of operations, sitting in the vault like a dragon's hoard, and no one is coming for it. Kate looked up at Josh. Level 7, the vault. Josh's face was pale. What kind of assets? Kate turned more pages. The entries became shorter, more desperate. February 20th. I received my final orders today. Evacuate with my team by February 28th. Leave everything below level 4 as is. Seal the elevator. The facility will be decommissioned in place. That's the exact phrase they used. Like this is a normal procedure. I asked, what happens to the vault? The captain said, "That's above your clearance now, Commander. Follow your orders." I've spent 23 years following orders. I'm not sure I can follow this one. The final entry was dated February 28th, 1984. This is my last entry. We're leaving in an hour. I'm the last one here. I walked through every level one final time. I stood in the vault and looked at what we're abandoning. $360 million. That's the current estimated value. Money seized from cartels, from corrupt governments, from arms dealers and war criminals. Dirty money that we cleaned, catalogued, and were supposed to redistribute or use for covert operations. But the operations ended, the programs shut down, and the money just sat here, along with documents, intelligence files, things that could embarrass powerful people if they ever came to light. I think that's why they're burying this place. Not because the money doesn't matter, but because the secrets matter too much. I'm leaving this journal here. If anyone ever finds this facility, if anyone ever makes it down to level 7, know this. What's down there isn't cursed. It isn't forgotten by accident. It was forgotten on purpose. And that makes it more dangerous than any weapon we ever stored here. Do what we couldn't. Make it count. Make it matter. Commander William Hayes. Kate closed the journal slowly. Her heart was pounding. "Josh," she whispered, $360 million. Josh was staring at the desk, his face unreadable. If this is real, why wouldn't it be real? I don't know. Maybe Hayes was crazy. Maybe this is some kind of psychological test facility, and this is all fake. But he didn't sound convinced. Kate looked around the office. On the wall behind the desk, there were photographs in frames, military commendations, and one personal photo. Hayes with a woman and 2 young children, all of them smiling on a beach somewhere. He looked young in the photo, happy, real. He was real, Kate said, and I think what he wrote about is real too. They stood in silence for a long moment. Outside, the storm continued to rage. They were trapped here, maybe for days, trapped in a facility with 7 levels, 6 of which they hadn't fully explored, trapped with a journal that claimed there was a fortune hidden somewhere below their feet. "We should try to find it," Josh said finally. "The vault?" "Yeah." "Why?" He looked at her. "Because if we don't, we'll always wonder. And because—" He paused. "Because Hayes asked, in that journal. He asked whoever found this to make it count. We found it, Kate. After 42 years, we're the ones who found it." Kate thought about their life. The house with the mortgage they'd finally paid off at age 68, the medical bills from Josh's heart surgery that had eaten their savings, their daughter Emma drowning in student loans from law school. Their son Michael working 2 jobs to support his 3 kids. Their youngest, Claire, who'd had to drop out of college when her grant money ran out. $360 million. It was incomprehensible, but so was everything about today. "Okay," she said. "We try to find it." They went back to the elevator. Josh examined the card reader more carefully, tracing the wires with his fingers. "It has power," he said. "Look, there's a very faint light. The elevator might be operational. We just need a key card." They split up. Kate went back to the office where she'd found the journal. Josh searched the other offices on level 3. They looked in desks, drawers, filing cabinets. Kate found personnel files, budget reports, and more journals from other staff members, but no keycard. After an hour, she was ready to give up. She slumped in Hayes's desk chair, exhausted and overwhelmed. Her eyes fell on the desk itself. It was military issue. Metal, olive green, the kind of desk that was built to last 100 years. She opened the drawers again, more carefully this time, pulled them all the way out, checked for false bottoms. The bottom right drawer was deeper than it looked from the outside. She reached her hand all the way to the back and felt something. Her fingers closed around a lanyard. She pulled it out slowly. On the end was a white plastic card with a magnetic strip, and printed across the front, "Level 7 Access, W. Hayes." Kate's hands shook. She stood up, holding the card like it was made of glass, and walked back to the elevator. Josh was already there, still searching the area around the door. He looked up when he heard her footsteps. "I found it," she said. His eyes went wide. "You found it." She held up the key card. They stood there, both of them breathing hard, adrenaline coursing through their 70-something-year-old bodies. What happens next will turn this night upside down, reveal a truth nobody expected, and remind us why sometimes the quietest voices carry the most power. Stay tuned to see what happens next. If you're enjoying the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. Josh took a step toward the elevator, then stopped. "Kate, before we do this, we need to talk about what we're walking into." "I know. This isn't a game. If there really is $360 million down there, and if we're the first people to see it in 42 years, he trailed off. "Everything changes." "I know," she said again. "We could just leave. We could walk away right now, wait out the storm and drive home and never tell anyone." Kate looked at the keycard in her hand. "We could, but you know we won't." He smiled faintly. "Yeah, I know." She crossed to him and took his hand. They'd faced everything together for 47 years. New babies and broken bones, lost jobs and lost parents, fears and joys and the grinding, beautiful monotony of a shared life. Whatever was down there, they'd face it together too. Kate swiped the keycard through the reader. The light blinked green. Something deep in the walls groaned. Gears that hadn't moved in 4 decades beginning to turn. The elevator doors shuddered, then slowly slid open. Inside was a small metal box with fluorescent lights and a panel of buttons. 7 buttons, levels 1 through 7. Josh and Kate stepped inside. The doors closed behind them with a solid thunk. Josh's finger hovered over the button marked 7. "Here we go," he whispered. He pressed it. The elevator lurched, then began to descend. The elevator moved like something waking from a long sleep. It shuddered and groaned, cables squealing somewhere above them in the darkness. Kate gripped Josh's arm. The descent felt slower than it probably was, each second stretching as the numbers lit up one by one on the panel above the door. Level 2. They'd already explored most of that. Level 3. Hayes's office. The journal. Level 4. The elevator slowed, stopped. The doors opened onto a corridor identical to the ones above, but darker. The emergency lighting here was dimmer, some of the bulbs dead. Josh stepped out first, Kate right behind him. They could see doorways leading off the main corridor. Josh shone his flashlight into the first room. Weapons, racks of them lining the walls. Rifles, handguns, some things Kate couldn't even identify. All of them secured behind chain-link caging, but still there. Still real. "Armory," Josh said quietly. They didn't linger. Back in the elevator. Down. Level 5 opened onto what looked like a communications hub. Enormous machines with reels of tape, radio equipment, satellite dishes visible through a window that looked out into some kind of internal shaft. Kate saw maps on the walls, pins stuck in locations around the world. Moscow, Berlin, Havana, Tehran. The Cold War mapped out in red thread and colored pins. "This was a command center," Josh said. "They were running operations from here." Kate felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. They were standing in the ghost of a war most people had forgotten was even fought. A war of shadows and secrets played out in rooms like this while the rest of the world went about their lives never knowing. Back in the elevator, level 6. The doors opened and the smell hit them first. Chemical, sterile. Kate recognized it from hospitals. They stepped out into a laboratory. Stainless steel tables, microscopes under plastic covers, refrigeration units still humming. Josh opened one carefully. "Empty," he said. "But it's still running, still cold." Kate looked at the labels on the storage cabinets. Biological samples, chemical agents, hazmat suits hanging on hooks by a sealed door marked with radiation warnings. "What were they doing down here?" she whispered. "Testing," Josh said. "Analysis. Or maybe storage. Keeping things that were too dangerous to keep anywhere else." They walked through quickly, neither of them wanting to spend more time here than necessary. The laboratory felt wrong in a way the other levels hadn't, like they were trespassing in a place humans were never meant to be. Back to the elevator, one button left, level 7. Josh looked at Kate. "Last chance to turn back." "We're not turning back." He pressed the button. The elevator descended deeper than before. Kate felt the pressure in her ears change. They were going deep into the mountain now, far below the surface, below the frost line, below everything. The elevator trembled, groaned. For a horrible moment, Kate thought it might just stop, trap them between floors in the dark. But then it settled with a soft chime. The doors opened. They stepped out into a small anteroom, concrete walls, one door directly ahead, and next to it, a keypad and another card reader. But also, painted on the wall in faded yellow letters, "Authorized personnel only. Deadly force authorized." Josh shone his flashlight around the small space. "There's a camera up there." Kate looked. A security camera mounted in the corner, its red light blinking steadily. "It's on," she breathed. "The whole facility's been on," Josh said. "Running on backup power for 42 years. Automated systems." Kate approached the door. It was massive, steel. The kind of door you'd see on a bank vault, but bigger, much bigger. There was a wheel in the center, like on a submarine hatch, and next to it, the card reader. She pulled Hayes' keycard from her pocket. Her hand was shaking. She swiped it. Nothing happened. She tried again. The reader blinked red. Access denied. "What?" Kate felt panic rising in her chest. "It worked before. It opened the elevator." Josh took the card and examined it. "Maybe there's a code. Look, there's a keypad." But they didn't know any code. They stood there, staring at the massive door, so close and yet completely locked out. Josh slumped against the wall. "We came all this way." Kate felt tears of frustration burning behind her eyes. This was stupid. They were stupid. Two old people playing detective in an abandoned military base, thinking they could just waltz into a high-security vault. What had they expected? She turned to go back to the elevator. As she did, her foot kicked something on the floor. A small object skittered across the concrete. She bent down and picked it up. A key, old-fashioned, brass, with a number stamped on it, 7777. Josh saw it. "Try it." "Try it where?" He pointed. Beneath the keypad was a small keyhole, so subtle they'd missed it. Kate inserted the key. It turned smoothly. The keypad lit up green, and on its display 4 numbers appeared. 7777. "That's the code," Josh said. "It's telling us the code." Kate's fingers trembled as she entered the numbers. 7777. A deep clunk echoed from within the door, mechanical locks disengaging. The wheel in the center turned on its own, spinning counterclockwise. The massive door swung inward slowly, ponderously, like the entrance to a tomb. Cold air rushed out, dry, preserved. Josh and Kate stood at the threshold, their flashlight beams cutting into the darkness beyond. What happens next will shatter everything they thought they knew about honor, duty, and the weight of secrets that powerful men bury when the world stops watching. Stay tuned, because what's inside this vault didn't just belong to a forgotten program. It belonged to the people it was stolen from, and 2 honest souls are about to decide what justice really means. If you're hooked on this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. They stepped inside. The vault was vast. The ceiling was at least 20 feet high, the space stretching back into shadows their flashlights couldn't quite penetrate. But what they could see stopped them cold. Rows of industrial shelving units, and on those shelves, boxes, hundreds of them, filing boxes, safety deposit boxes, metal cases with combination locks. But that wasn't what made Kate gasp. In the center of the room, on wooden pallets, were stacks of currency. US dollars, bundled and wrapped. Some of the bundles had labels, $100,000, $50,000. The stacks rose 4 feet high, wrapped in plastic, preserved perfectly in the climate-controlled vault. And beside the money, smaller pallets of gold bars. They gleamed dully in the flashlight beam, each one stamped with official markings, and beside those, wooden crates. Josh pried one open. Inside, wrapped in cloth, were paintings, old paintings in ornate frames. He carefully lifted one and shone his light on it. Even Kate, who knew nothing about art, could tell it was valuable. The kind of thing that belonged in a museum. "Oh my God," Josh whispered. "Oh my God, Kate." They moved deeper into the vault. More shelves. These held filing cabinets, each drawer labeled. Kate opened one at random. Inside were files, intelligence reports, surveillance photographs, documents marked classified and top secret. She pulled one out. It was a dossier on a Colombian drug cartel from 1978. Financial records, bank accounts, names of corrupt officials. The next drawer held similar files but about a different organization. And the next. And the next. Decades of intelligence gathering, all stored here, all forgotten. Josh found a desk against the far wall. Not Hayes's desk, but another one. This one had been used as a command center for the vault itself. He found inventory logs, actual ledgers where someone had meticulously recorded everything that came in. He opened the most recent one. The last entry was dated February 27, 1984. 1 day before Hayes wrote his final journal entry. Josh read aloud, his voice shaking. Final inventory complete. Total assets as follows. US currency, $137 million. Gold bullion, $42 million estimated value. Seized property, including artwork and jewelry, $18 million estimated value. Classified documents, 163 file boxes. Total estimated value of vault contents, $360 million. He looked up at Kate. His face was white. "It's real, all of it. It's really here." Kate walked slowly between the rows of shelves, her mind struggling to process the enormity of what they were seeing. This wasn't supposed to exist. This kind of money didn't just sit in a vault for 42 years. Governments didn't forget about $360 million, except they had. She found more documents, operation files. She opened one marked Operation Brass Eagle 1972 to 1976. Inside was a detailed account of a covert operation to infiltrate and dismantle an arms smuggling ring. The money seized had been brought here. Over $8 million, all accounted for, all sitting somewhere in this vault. Another file. Operation Iron Gate, 1969 to 1971. Soviet intelligence documents stolen from a double agent, brought here for analysis and storage. Classified above top secret, never to be released. Every box told a story. Every file was a piece of history that had been locked away and forgotten. Josh found photographs pinned to a bulletin board near the desk. They were staff photos, the men and women who had worked in this facility, who had guarded these secrets. And there, in the center, was Hayes. Younger than in the photo Kate had seen upstairs, but the same man, standing with 3 other people in front of this very vault. All of them in uniform, all of them smiling slightly, the way people smile for official photographs. Beneath the photo was a small plaque. Vault Security Team, 1980 to 1984. Commander W. Hayes, Chief of Operations. Kate came to stand beside Josh, looking at the photograph. He spent his last 4 years here, guarding this. And then they told him to walk away, Josh said. They kept searching. Kate found another journal, this one locked in a desk drawer that Josh had to force open with a screwdriver from his emergency kit. The lock broke easily. The journal inside was Hayes's too, but different from the one upstairs. This one was his personal log. Private thoughts never meant to be official. Kate opened it to a random page. November 12th, 1982. Another shipment today. $6 million in cash from the Panama operation. It goes on the pallets with the rest. I asked Captain Morrison today what we're supposed to do with all this money. He said we're keeping it safe until it can be properly redistributed or used for sanctioned operations. But I've been here 3 years and I've never seen a single dollar leave this vault. It only comes in, never out. I'm starting to wonder if anyone remembers we're here, if anyone cares. Kate flipped to another entry, March 5th, 1983. I called my wife today, told her I couldn't make it home for Sarah's birthday again. She cried. I could hear it even though she tried to hide it. Sarah's turning 8. She barely knows me anymore. What am I doing here? Guarding money that no one will ever use, protecting secrets that will never be told? I joined the service to defend my country. But down here, 7 levels underground, I don't even know what country I'm defending anymore. Josh was reading over her shoulder. Kate saw his jaw tighten. She flipped to the final entries, February 1984. Hayes wrote every day that month, his handwriting becoming more erratic, more desperate. February 14th. Still no word on transport. I've been told to begin evacuation procedures but to leave all vault contents in place. In place, like we're just going to seal it up and walk away. Do they understand what's down here? Do they care? February 21st. I made a decision today that could end my career. I copied the master inventory log. I copied the operation files. I'm going to hide them where anyone who finds this place will find them too. Because if we're going to abandon this vault, if we're going to let all of this disappear, then someone needs to know the truth. Someone needs to know what we did here. February 27th. This is my last entry in this journal. Tomorrow I'll write one final entry in the official log, then we evacuate. I'm leaving the copies in obvious places. My keycard too, hidden but findable, because I believe, maybe foolishly, that someone honest will find this place, someone who'll do what we couldn't. Kate closed the journal. Her throat was tight. He left us breadcrumbs, the journal upstairs, the keycard, the key to the vault. He wanted someone to find this. But why? Josh asked. Why not just blow the whistle himself? Why not go to the press? Because he was military, Kate said softly. He'd spent his whole life following orders. Even when he disagreed, he followed them. But he couldn't live with this being buried forever. So he did what he could. He left the door open. Just a crack. They spent the next hour going through more files. The scope of what was stored here was staggering. Operations spanning 30 years, dozens of countries, hundreds of millions of dollars seized from criminal organizations, corrupt governments, and black market dealers. And all of it had been brought here, to this vault, to disappear. Josh found a file that made him stop cold. "Kate, look at this." It was a manifest, a shipping manifest from February 1984. It listed everything that was supposed to be moved out of the facility during evacuation: office equipment, furniture, supplies, but nothing from the vault. The vault wasn't mentioned at all. "They never planned to move it," Josh said. "They were always going to leave it here." "But why?" Kate asked. "Why leave $360 million in a sealed vault?" Josh pulled out another file. This one was stamped "Eyes Only, Executive Level Clearance." Inside was a memo dated January 1984. Kate read it over his shoulder. "Memorandum regarding Facility 77 operations. Due to recent political climate and ongoing congressional investigations into covert funding sources, it has been determined that continued operation of Facility 77 presents unacceptable risk of exposure. Facility will be decommissioned effective February 1984. All personnel will be reassigned. All materials will be secured in place pending future retrieval." But there was a handwritten note at the bottom, in different ink. "Future retrieval authorization denied. Vault contents to remain sealed indefinitely. Facility location to be removed from active records." Kate felt sick. They were covering it up. There was some kind of investigation, and they were afraid this place would be discovered, so they just buried it, erased it from the records, and forgot about it, Josh finished. They stood in the massive vault, surrounded by the evidence of decades of covert operations. Money that should have been returned to victims or used for legitimate purposes. Intelligence that should have been analyzed or shared with allies. Art that should have been in museums. All of it locked away because it was easier to forget than to explain. Kate thought about Hayes, about the pain in his words, the guilt. He'd spent 4 years of his life guarding this vault, away from his family, missing his daughter's childhood, believing he was serving his country. And in the end, they'd just told him to lock the door and pretend none of it existed. She looked at Josh. His face was drawn, exhausted. They'd been awake for nearly 24 hours now. The adrenaline that had carried them through the discovery was fading, leaving only bone-deep weariness. "We need to rest," she said. "We need to think about what we're going to do with this." Josh nodded. "But first, we should document everything. Take photos, make sure we have proof." They spent another hour photographing the vault, the money, the gold, the files. Kate took pictures of the inventory logs, the operation files, the photographs on the bulletin board. Josh filmed video on his phone, panning slowly across the rows of shelves, narrating what they were seeing. When they were done, they had hundreds of images. Proof that this place existed, that everything Hayes had written about was real. They took the elevator back up to level 2, to the living quarters they'd claimed earlier. Kate's legs were shaking by the time they reached the room. She collapsed onto the bed. Josh sat down beside her heavily. Outside, they could still hear the wind. The storm hadn't let up. They were still trapped here, trapped with the biggest secret either of them had ever encountered. "Josh," Kate said quietly, "what are we going to do?" He was quiet for a long time. "I don't know. That money, those files, they don't belong to us." "I know." "But they don't belong to the government either. Not anymore. They abandoned it. They erased this place from their records." "I know." Kate rolled onto her side to look at him. "We could take some of it, just enough to change our lives, to help our kids. No one would ever know." Josh met her eyes. "We'd know." "Would that be so bad? We've worked our whole lives, Josh. 72 and 70 years old, and we're still worrying about money, still trying to make ends meet. That money down there is just sitting, doing nothing, helping no one." "But it's not ours," Josh said softly. "And if we take it, we're no different from the people it was stolen from in the first place." Kate felt tears sliding down her face. I know you're right, but God, Josh, just once I'd like to not have to worry. Just once I'd like to be able to help Emma pay off her loans, or give Michael enough money that he doesn't have to work 2 jobs. Just once. Josh pulled her close. She cried against his shoulder, all the exhaustion and stress and overwhelming magnitude of the day pouring out. "We'll figure it out," he murmured. "We always do, together." They held each other as the storm raged outside, and $360 million sat 7 levels below them in the dark. Eventually, exhausted, they fell asleep. Kate woke hours later. The room was dark except for the faint glow of emergency lighting from the hallway. Josh was asleep beside her, snoring softly. Her phone said it was 4:18 in the morning. She lay there thinking about Hayes, about the money, about the life she and Josh had built on modest means and careful choices. They'd never been dishonest people, never cheated on their taxes or lied to get ahead. They'd raised their kids to be good, to work hard, to do the right thing even when it was hard. And now here they were, faced with a choice that would define everything they'd taught, everything they believed. She thought about what Josh had said. We'd know. He was right. If they took that money, even a fraction of it, they'd carry that weight forever. Every time they looked at their kids, their grandkids, they'd know. And maybe that knowledge would be worth it. Maybe the comfort and security would make it bearable. Or maybe it would eat them alive. She got up quietly and walked to the window. The storm was finally starting to break. She could see hints of grey dawn through the snow. Maybe by afternoon they could leave. Drive down the mountain. Go home. Pretend this never happened. But she knew they wouldn't. Couldn't. She went to the office where she'd found Hayes's journal. It was still on the desk where she'd left it. She sat down and opened it, reading through his entries again by flashlight. And there, tucked into the back pages, she found something she'd missed before, a folded letter. The paper was yellowed, the creases deep. She opened it carefully. It was addressed to whoever finds this. Kate's hands trembled as she read. If you're reading this, then you've found the vault. You know what's down there, and you're probably wondering what to do about it. I've asked myself the same question every day for 4 years. Let me tell you what I wish I'd done. I wish I'd had the courage to make this right. To go above my commanders, above the chain of command, and tell someone who could actually do something about it. The money down there came from terrible people. Cartels who poisoned communities, dictators who stole from their people, arms dealers who profited from war. That money was supposed to help fix some of the damage those people did. Instead, it's just sitting in the dark. And the intelligence files, the operations we ran, some of them were justified, some of them weren't. But all of them deserve to see the light of day. History shouldn't be locked in a vault. I didn't have the courage to do what needed to be done. I was too loyal, too afraid, too much of a coward. I told myself I was following orders, being a good soldier. But really, I was just avoiding the hardest decision of my life. If you're reading this, don't make my mistake. Don't let fear or loyalty or doubt stop you from doing what's right. That money needs to go where it can do some good. Those files need to be examined by people who can learn from them. This vault needs to be opened not just by you, but by the world. It won't be easy. Powerful people made the decision to bury this place. They won't be happy when it comes back to haunt them. You might face consequences. You might be questioned, investigated, doubted. But you'll be right, and sometimes being right is enough. I failed. Maybe you won't. Do what we couldn't. Make it count. Make it matter. Commander William Hayes, February 27, 1984. Kate read the letter 3 times. Tears streamed down her face. Hayes had known. He'd known exactly what he was asking, the weight he was placing on whoever found this, and he'd done it anyway, because he believed in something bigger than himself. She folded the letter carefully and put it in her pocket. Then she woke Josh. "We need to talk," she said. They sat together at Hayes's desk as dawn broke outside. Kate showed him the letter. Josh read it slowly, his expression unreadable. When he finished, he set it down and looked at her. "We're going to do it, aren't we?" he said. "Yeah," Kate said, "we are. We're going to expose this whole thing." "Yes. It's going to be complicated, messy. We might get in trouble. People might not believe us." "I know. And we're not going to keep any of the money." Kate smiled faintly. "Not a dollar." Josh took her hand. "Okay then, but we do it smart. We document everything first, we figure out who to trust, and we make sure Hayes gets the credit he deserves." "Agreed." They spent the next several hours preparing. They went back down to the vault and took more photographs, more detailed ones. They copied files. They found the master inventory log and photographed every page. They found Hayes's personnel file and copied that too. They wanted the world to know who he was, what he'd done, what he'd tried to do. By mid-morning, the storm had passed. Through the windows they could see clear sky. The snow had stopped. They'd be able to leave soon. But before they did, Kate had one more thing to do. She went back to the vault one last time, stood in the center of that massive room surrounded by $360 million in forgotten assets. And she spoke out loud, even though no one was there to hear. "We're going to make it right, Commander Hayes. I promise. We're going to tell your story. And we're going to make sure this money does what it was supposed to do 42 years ago. You were right to leave us the key. You were right to believe someone honest would find this. We're not going to let you down." Her words echoed in the vast space, then fell silent. Josh appeared in the doorway. "Ready?" "Ready." They took the elevator up, gathered their few belongings, took one last look at the facility that had sheltered them and changed their lives. Then they stepped out into the blinding white world. The Honda CR-V was buried under 3 feet of snow, but it started on the first try. Josh cleared the windows while Kate made a call on the satellite phone they'd found in the communications room. Their daughter Emma answered on the 3rd ring. "Mom, where are you? I've been trying to reach you for 2 days." "Emma," Kate said, her voice shaking, "I need you to listen very carefully. Your father and I found something big, something that's going to change everything. We need your help, and we need you to not ask questions until we get there." There was a long pause. "Mom, you're scaring me." "I know, baby, but trust me, just trust me. We're okay, we're safe, and we're coming home. But when we get there, we're going to need a lawyer, a good one." Another pause. "I am a lawyer, Mom." Kate smiled. "I know. That's why we're calling you first." They hung up. Josh had the car cleared and ready. They climbed in. He put it in gear and carefully navigated down the mountain road, now plowed by early morning crews. As they drove, Kate looked back one last time at the fortress. It was already disappearing behind them, concrete and snow blending together until you couldn't tell where the mountain ended and the building began. She thought about Hayes, about his family, about the sacrifice he'd made and the burden he'd carried. She thought about all the people that money had been stolen from, all the victims who'd never seen justice, and she thought about the choice she and Josh had made. The hard choice, the right choice. They had found $360 million, and they were going to give it all away. The drive down the mountain felt like descending from another world. Josh kept his hands tight on the wheel, navigating the freshly plowed road with the same careful precision he'd used for everything in his life. Kate sat beside him, silent, her phone clutched in her lap, checking every few minutes to see if they had signal yet. They didn't speak much. What was there to say? Everything had already been said in that vault, in Hayes's office, in the choices they'd made before dawn. Now they just had to live with those choices, had to see them through. When the first bar of cell signal appeared, Kate's phone exploded with notifications. Texts from Emma, voicemails from their son Michael, messages from friends wondering where they'd disappeared to. The world had continued without them for 3 days, and now it wanted answers. Kate didn't respond to any of them. Not yet. She needed time to think, to process, to figure out how to explain what they'd found without sounding completely insane. They stopped at a diner in a small town called Silverdale, population 3,200. The kind of place with vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like it had been sitting on the burner since yesterday. They ordered breakfast, eggs and toast for Kate, pancakes for Josh. Neither of them could eat more than a few bites. "We should call Emma back," Josh said. "I know. Tell her we're okay." "I know." Kate stared at her coffee. Her reflection wavered in the dark liquid. She looked old. Older than 70. The last 3 days had aged her in ways that had nothing to do with time. "Josh," she said quietly, "are we doing the right thing?" He looked at her. Really looked at her. "I think so. I hope so." "What if no one believes us? What if they think we're crazy or lying or trying to pull some kind of scam?" "Then we show them the photographs, the videos. We take them to the fortress and show them the vault." "And what if the government just takes it all back? Seals it up again? Makes it disappear like they did the first time?" Josh was quiet for a moment. "That's why we called Emma first. She'll know what to do, legally, how to protect what we found, how to make sure it can't be buried again." Kate wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that there was a path forward that didn't end with them in prison or the vault sealed forever or worse. But trust was hard when you just discovered that your government had hidden $360 million in a mountain and pretended it didn't exist for 42 years. They paid for breakfast they hadn't eaten and got back on the road. Emma was waiting for them when they pulled into their driveway 6 hours later. She'd driven up from Seattle, 4 hours each way, the moment she'd gotten Kate's call. She stood on the porch of their small house, arms crossed, face tight with worry. Kate barely made it out of the car before Emma was hugging her, holding on like she was afraid her mother might disappear again. 3 days, Emma said, her voice breaking. "You were gone for 3 days. No one knew where you were. The cabin you rented called to say you never checked in. Michael was ready to file a missing persons report." "I'm sorry, baby," Kate whispered. "We're sorry, but we couldn't call. We were trapped." "Trapped where?" Josh came around the car. "Inside. We need to talk inside." They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where they'd eaten thousands of meals, paid bills, done homework with their kids decades ago. Emma sat across from them, laptop open, legal pad ready. She was 38, a public interest lawyer who specialized in government accountability cases. She'd followed in her father's footsteps, not in engineering, but in his belief that systems should work for everyone, not just the powerful. "Okay," Emma said. "I'm ready. Tell me what happened." Josh and Kate looked at each other. Then Kate pulled out her phone and opened the photo gallery. She slid it across the table. Emma looked at the screen. Her eyes went wide. "What am I looking at?" $360 million, Kate said. "Give or take. Hidden in a classified military installation in the Cascade Mountains, abandoned in 1984, forgotten for 42 years. Until we found it." Emma's face went blank. The kind of blank that happens when someone's brain is trying to process information that doesn't fit into any existing category of possible. "You're serious," she said. "Completely. $360 million. Plus classified documents, intelligence files, gold, artwork, all of it just sitting in a vault 7 levels underground." Emma scrolled through the photos. The money, the gold bars, the filing cabinets, the inventory logs. Her hands started shaking. "Mom, Dad, do you understand what this is?" "We think so. This is the biggest government cover-up I've ever heard of. Bigger than anything I've worked on. Bigger than anything most lawyers will ever work on." She looked up at them. "And you just walked into it by accident." "We got trapped in a blizzard," Josh said. "We were looking for shelter. We found an abandoned military base. And then we found a journal from the commander who used to run the place. He left us clues, breadcrumbs. He wanted someone to find it." "Commander William Hayes," Kate added. "He's been dead for years, probably. But he left us everything we needed to get into the vault. He wanted the truth to come out. Emma was quiet for a long time. She scrolled through more photos, read some of the document images Kate had captured, her lawyer brain working through scenarios, consequences, legal frameworks. "This could go a lot of different ways," she said finally. "And most of them aren't good for you." Kate felt her stomach drop. "What do you mean?" "I mean, the government could argue you broke into a federal facility, stole classified documents, accessed secure areas without authorization. They could prosecute you." "We didn't break in," Josh said. "The door was unlocked, and we weren't trying to steal anything. We were trying to survive." "I believe you," Emma said. "But the question is whether anyone else will, especially when you're claiming to have found something this valuable that the government supposedly lost track of." "We have proof," Kate said. "Hundreds of photos, videos. We have Hayes's journal, his letter, the inventory logs." "Which you removed from a classified facility." Kate felt panic rising. "So what do we do? Just pretend we never found it? Let it stay buried?" "No," Emma said firmly. "Absolutely not. But we have to be smart about this, strategic. We can't just call the FBI and say, 'Hey, we found you're missing $360 million. They'll lock you up and seal that facility so fast your heads will spin." "Then what?" Josh asked. Emma was quiet, thinking. Kate could see her mother's mind behind her eyes, the same careful consideration Kate used when fixing a problem, the same methodical approach Josh used when engineering a solution. "We need leverage," Emma said finally. "We need to make it impossible for them to bury this again, which means we need witnesses, documentation, public pressure." "How?" Kate asked. "We build a case. We document everything. And then we go to the press and the authorities simultaneously. Make it so public they can't make it disappear." Josh leaned back in his chair. "That's going to make us targets." "Yes," Emma said. "It is. But it's also the only way to make sure Hayes's sacrifice meant something. The only way to make sure that money goes where it should have gone 42 years ago." Kate thought about Hayes, about his letter, about his final plea. Don't let them bury it again. "Okay," she said. "Tell us what to do." They spent the next 5 days building their case. Emma brought in a colleague, a forensic accountant named Marcus, who specialized in tracking illegal assets. He looked at the inventory logs and nearly had a heart attack. "This is real," he kept saying. "This is actually real." Emma also contacted a journalist she trusted, a woman named Sarah Chen, who worked for a major national newspaper and had won awards for investigative reporting. Sarah was skeptical at first, but when Emma showed her the photos, her skepticism turned to focused intensity. "I need to see it," Sarah said. "The actual facility. I need to verify this is real before we run anything." "We'll take you," Kate said. "But we need to move fast. Once word gets out, the government will seal it." They planned carefully. Emma filed legal documents with multiple courts, establishing Josh and Kate as the discoverers of the facility under federal finders laws. Marcus created a detailed financial analysis of the vault's contents. Sarah prepared her story, ready to publish the moment they gave the word. And through it all, Kate couldn't sleep. She lay awake at night thinking about Hayes. She'd found more photos of him in the vault, pictures of him with his family. His wife was a small woman with kind eyes. His daughter Sarah looked to be about 8 in most of the photos, the same age as Emma had been when Kate went back to work full-time. Kate understood Hayes in a way she suspected few people could. He'd been a man torn between duty and family, between following orders and following his conscience. He'd chosen duty, and it had cost him years with his daughter, cost him peace of mind, cost him ultimately everything. She told Josh one night as they lay in bed, "My father was like Hayes." Josh turned to look at her. "What do you mean?" "He was military, Air Force. He was gone a lot when I was growing up. Mom and I barely saw him, and when he was home, he was distant, like part of him was always somewhere else. You never talked much about him. Because I was angry, Kate said. I thought he didn't care about us, thought he chose his job over his family, but now I wonder if he was just like Hayes, carrying secrets, following orders, trying to serve something bigger than himself even when it hurt. Is that why you connected with Hayes's story? Kate nodded. He loved his daughter. You can see it in the photos, the way he looked at her. But he still left, still chose the vault, just like my dad chose the service. She paused. I think Hayes knew he was making a mistake. I think that's why he left us the journal, the letter. He knew he'd failed his family, and he didn't want to fail the mission too. Josh took her hand. You're not like him, Kate. You never put anything before our kids. Didn't I? Kate asked softly. How many times did I work late? Miss school plays? Forget to call on their birthdays because I was too busy trying to make ends meet? That's different. You were trying to keep us afloat. And Hayes was trying to serve his country. Where's the line, Josh? When does duty become neglect? When does sacrifice become selfishness? Josh didn't have an answer. They lay in the dark, holding hands, both of them thinking about the choices they'd made, the choices they were making now. The following week, they drove back to the fortress, this time with Emma, Marcus, and Sarah. The road was clear now, the snow mostly melted. They found the building easily in daylight. It looked even more imposing without the storm obscuring it. A concrete monument to Cold War paranoia, built to last forever and forgotten in a generation. Sarah filmed everything. The exterior, the unlocked door, the corridors, the levels. Kate showed them Hayes's office, his journal. Josh demonstrated how they'd found the keycard, the key to the vault, and then they descended. When the vault door opened and Sarah saw what was inside, she actually gasped. Marcus went pale. Emma just stood there, shaking her head in disbelief. I didn't think it was really real, Marcus whispered. I mean, I saw the photos, but I didn't think it was really real. They spent hours documenting everything. Sarah interviewed Josh and Kate on camera. Marcus photographed and catalogued the inventory logs, cross-referencing them with the actual contents. Emma took detailed notes on everything, building the legal case. And Kate? She spent time in Hayes's personal space at the back of the vault. She'd noticed it on their first visit, but hadn't explored it fully. There was a small office area, a desk, a filing cabinet, and on the wall, more photos of his family. She opened the filing cabinet. Inside were personal files, Hayes's personnel records, commendations, performance reviews, and tucked in the back, a bundle of letters. Kate pulled them out carefully. They were letters from Hayes to his wife, all of them sealed, stamped, addressed, but never sent. Dozens of them spanning 4 years. Kate opened one dated June 15, 1981. Dear Caroline, I know I should call, but it's easier to write what I'm feeling. Easier to say the things I can't say when I hear your voice and Sarah asking when I'm coming home. I'm sorry I missed her birthday again. I'm sorry I'm not there. I tell myself it matters, what I'm doing here. I tell myself I'm protecting something important. But when I think about Sarah growing up without me, I wonder if I'm just hiding. If I'm using duty as an excuse to avoid the messy, complicated, beautiful work of being a husband and father. I love you both. More than I can say. More than I show. I hope someday you'll understand why I stayed. Why I chose this. Even though I'm not sure I understand it myself. Yours always, William. Kate's vision blurred with tears. She read another. And another. All of them were the same. Love and guilt and justification all tangled together. Hayes had known. He'd known he was failing his family, but he'd stayed anyway because he believed in the mission, believed that guarding the vault mattered. And then the mission had ended. The vault had been abandoned. and everything he'd sacrificed had been for nothing. Kate gathered all the letters and brought them to Emma. "We need to find his family," she said. "If they're still alive, they need to see these. They need to know he loved them, that he thought about them every day." Emma took the letters carefully. "I'll find them." It took 3 days. Emma worked her legal network, tracked down military records, contacted veterans organizations, and finally she found her. Caroline Hayes, aged 94, living in a nursing home in Virginia. Sarah was still alive too. Sarah Hayes Connolly now, 62, living in North Carolina, married with 3 children and 6 grandchildren. Emma arranged a call. Kate insisted on being the one to make it. Sarah answered on the second ring. Her voice was cautious. "Hello?" "Ms. Connolly, my name is Kate Harper. You don't know me, but I need to talk to you about your father." There was a long pause. "My father died in 1998. "I know. I'm so sorry, but I found something that belonged to him. Something I think you need to see." Another pause. "What kind of something?" Kate took a deep breath. "Your father spent the last 4 years of his military career at a classified facility in Washington state. He was guarding something, protecting something, and when the facility was decommissioned, he left behind a record of what he did there, and letters, dozens of letters he wrote to your mother but never sent." She heard Sarah's breath catch. "Letters?" "Yes. And Miss Connolly, they're beautiful, painful but beautiful. He loved you so much, both of you. He thought about you every day. I think he wanted you to know that, even though he couldn't say it while he was alive." Sarah was crying now. Kate could hear it through the phone. "I always thought he didn't care. He was never home, and when he was so distant, like we weren't real to him." "You were real," Kate said gently. "You were the most real thing in his life, and that's why it was so hard for him. Because he loved you, and he was failing you, and he didn't know how to fix it." They talked for over an hour. Kate told her about the vault, about the journal, about Hayes's final letter asking whoever found the facility to make it right. Sarah listened, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing at stories about her father Kate shared from the journals. "Can I see it?" Sarah asked finally. "The facility? The letters?" "Yes," Kate said. "Absolutely. We'll arrange everything." 2 weeks later, Sarah Hayes Connolly stood in her father's office 7 levels underground. She held his journal in her hands, read his words, saw his handwriting, and wept. Kate stood beside her, not saying anything, just being present, giving her space to grieve and heal and understand. "He left this for someone to find," Sarah said finally. "He wanted the truth to come out." "Yes. He believed someone honest would find it, someone who would do what he couldn't." "That's what his letter said." Sarah looked at Kate. Her eyes were red but clear. "You're going to expose this, aren't you? You're going to tell the world what he did here, what they all did here." "Yes," Kate said. "If you'll let us, we want to honor his memory, show people he was a good man who tried to do the right thing, even if it took 42 years for that right thing to happen." Sarah nodded slowly. "Then you have my blessing, and my mother's too. I spoke to her yesterday. She's not well, but she understood. She said Dad would want this, would want his sacrifice to mean something." "Thank you," Kate whispered. Sarah handed her something, a small photograph. Hayes in uniform, young, maybe 25. He was smiling, really smiling, the kind of smile that comes before life gets complicated. "I want you to have this," Sarah said, "so you remember him as he was, before the vault, before the secrets, just a man who believed in something." Kate took the photograph carefully. "I'll keep it with me, I promise." That night, back at their hotel, Josh found Kate sitting on the bed, staring at Hayes's photograph. "You okay?" he asked. "I don't know," Kate said honestly. I keep thinking about what we're about to do, how it's going to change everything, not just for us, but for Hayes's family, for everyone involved in that program. We can still walk away, Josh said, if you want to. Kate looked at him. No, we can't. We stopped being able to walk away the moment we opened that vault, the moment we read Hayes's letter. She paused. He's counting on us, Josh. A dead man is counting on us to do what he couldn't. How do we walk away from that? We don't, Josh said quietly. We see it through. The next morning, they met with Emma, Marcus, and Sarah, the journalist, at Emma's Seattle office. It was time to make the final decision. Time to pull the trigger on something that couldn't be undone. Sarah laid out her article. It was comprehensive, devastating, and fair. She told Hayes's story, told Josh and Kate's story, explained what the vault contained and why it had been hidden. She had corroboration from former military officials who remembered the facility. She had legal experts weighing in on the implications. She had historians contextualizing what this meant for understanding Cold War covert operations. It was ready to publish. Marcus presented his financial analysis. $362 million in current value. Accounting for inflation, the original seizures would have been worth far more, but even the current value was staggering. He'd also traced where the money had come from, which operations, which organizations. Some of the cartels and criminal enterprises were still active. Some of their victims were still alive. This money could do real good, Marcus said. There are organizations that help trafficking victims, programs that combat organized crime, communities devastated by cartel violence. If this money was distributed to them, it could change thousands of lives. Emma had prepared the legal strategy. She'd filed documents in 3 different jurisdictions, establishing Josh and Kate's legal standing as discoverers. She'd prepared lawsuits to prevent the government from simply resealing the facility. She'd contacted the ACLU, several government watchdog organizations, and 3 congressional offices known for oversight work. The moment Sarah publishes, Emma said, we go public everywhere. Press conference, legal filings, congressional notifications. We make so much noise they can't make this disappear. Josh looked at Kate. You ready? Kate thought about Hayes, about his daughter Sarah crying in that underground office, about the unsent letters, about a man who'd spent 4 years of his life guarding a secret that had eaten him alive. She thought about their own life, the struggles, the nights worrying about money, the times they'd had to say no to their kids because they couldn't afford to say yes. They could have taken some of that money, enough to change everything, and no one would have known. But they would have known, and more importantly, Hayes would have known. His sacrifice would have been tainted by their greed. I'm ready, Kate said. Sarah typed a final sentence on her laptop. Okay, I'm sending it to my editor now. It'll go live in 6 hours. Emma pulled out her phone. And I'm filing the legal documents now. Marcus opened his presentation. And I'm releasing the financial analysis to congressional oversight committees now. They all pressed send simultaneously, and just like that, everything changed. Kate felt it in her chest, a loosening, a lightening. They'd made the choice, the hard choice, the right choice. There was no going back now. Josh took her hand. She held on tight. 6 hours later, Sarah Chen's article went live. The headline read, Elderly couple discovers $360 million in abandoned Cold War facility government left behind. Within an hour, it was the most read story on the internet. Within 3 hours, every major news network was covering it. Within 6 hours, the FBI had issued a statement. Within 12 hours, Josh and Kate's phone wouldn't stop ringing. They sat in Emma's office, watching the news coverage, reading the reactions online, trying to process what they'd unleashed. No going back now, Josh said quietly. No, Kate agreed, no going back. But as she watched Hayes's photograph flash across the news, as she heard reporters describing him as a hero who tried to do the right thing, as she saw his daughter giving interviews about the father she'd barely known, Kate felt something she hadn't expected. Peace. They'd done what Hayes asked. They'd made it count. They'd made it matter. Whatever came next, they'd face it together, the way they'd faced everything for 47 years. And somewhere, Kate hoped, William Hayes was finally resting easy. The FBI arrived at Emma's office 48 hours after Sarah's article went live. 3 agents in dark suits, badges out, faces unreadable. They asked Josh and Kate to come with them for questioning. Emma insisted on accompanying them. "My clients are cooperating voluntarily," she said firmly. "They've broken no laws. They found an abandoned facility and reported what they discovered. That's not a crime." The lead agent, a woman named Jennifer Cross, looked at Emma with tired eyes. "Ma'am, they accessed a classified government installation and removed documents. We need to establish the facts." "The installation was decommissioned in 1984, Emma shot back. "Abandoned, unlocked. There were no posted warnings, no guards, nothing indicating it was active or restricted. My clients sought shelter from a life-threatening blizzard. That's not trespassing. That's survival. They went anyway." Josh and Kate sat in separate interview rooms for 6 hours. They told their story over and over. The storm, the fortress, the journal, the vault, the choice they'd made to go public rather than keep the money. When Agent Cross finally let them go, she pulled Kate aside. "Off the record," Cross said quietly. "What you did took guts. There are people in Washington who are very unhappy right now, very powerful people who thought this was buried forever. You should be careful." "Are you threatening us?" Kate asked. "No," Cross said. "I'm warning you. There's a difference." The media circus intensified. News vans camped outside their house. Reporters shouted questions every time they stepped outside. Josh and Kate's faces were on every channel, in every paper. Some coverage was positive, praising them for their integrity. Some was skeptical, questioning their motives. And some was downright hostile, accusing them of being thieves or con artists or worse. Their phones never stopped ringing. Distant relatives they hadn't heard from in decades suddenly wanted to reconnect. Strangers called asking for money. Lawyers offered to represent them for a percentage. Publishers wanted book deals. Movie producers wanted rights to their story. Emma fielded all of it. She set up a separate phone line, hired a publicist to manage media requests, arranged security after someone threw a brick through Josh and Kate's front window with a note that read "Thieves." "This is insane," Kate said one night, sitting at their kitchen table while a news van idled outside. "We didn't do anything wrong. Why are people so angry?" "Because we exposed something they wanted hidden," Josh said. "Because we made powerful people look bad. Because some people can't believe anyone would turn down $360 million unless they had an angle." "We don't have an angle." "I know, but they don't believe that. They can't conceive of someone just doing the right thing without expecting something in return." Kate put her head in her hands. "Did we make a mistake?" Josh moved to sit beside her. "No, we did what Hayes asked. We made it matter. The rest of this, the circus, it'll pass. What matters is what happens to that money, what happens to Hayes's legacy." 3 weeks after the story broke, Congress announced hearings. The Senate Committee on Armed Services wanted answers. How had a classified facility been abandoned? How had $360 million been forgotten? Who was responsible? Who knew? Josh and Kate were subpoenaed to testify. Emma prepared them carefully. They spent days going over their testimony. What to say, what not to say, how to handle hostile questions. Josh, who'd never spoken publicly about anything in his life, practiced in front of the bathroom mirror. The hearing was held in a massive chamber in Washington, D.C. Josh and Kate sat at a long table facing a panel of senators. Behind them, the gallery was packed. Press, public. Hayes's daughter Sarah. His elderly widow Caroline in a wheelchair, frail but alert. Senator Margaret Bradford, chair of the committee, gavelled the hearing to order. This committee has been convened to investigate the circumstances surrounding Facility 77, a classified Cold War installation that was apparently decommissioned in 1984 and subsequently forgotten by the Department of Defense. We're here to understand how this happened and what steps must be taken to ensure it never happens again. She looked directly at Josh and Kate. Mr. and Mrs. Harper, you've been asked here today not as suspects, but as witnesses. You discovered this facility and chose to report what you found rather than keep it for yourselves. The committee appreciates your cooperation. Mr. Harper, would you please tell us in your own words what happened? Josh leaned toward the microphone. His voice shook slightly at first, then steadied. My wife and I were on our anniversary trip. We got caught in a blizzard. We found the facility and took shelter. We didn't know it was a classified installation. There were no signs, no warnings, no security. The door was unlocked. We went inside to survive. He described finding Hayes's journal, the vault, the decision to document everything and go public. As he spoke, senators leaned forward, listening intently. Some took notes. Others just stared in disbelief. When he finished, Senator Bradford turned to Kate. Mrs. Harper, you've stated that you found letters from Commander Hayes to his family. Letters he never sent. Can you tell us about those? Kate's throat tightened. She glanced back at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly. Commander Hayes was torn, Kate said, between duty and family. He spent 4 years guarding that vault, missing his daughter's childhood, and every day he wondered if it was worth it, if what he was protecting mattered. And then when they abandoned the facility, he realized it had all been for nothing. That sacrifice, his family's sacrifice, wasted. Her voice broke. He left those letters because he wanted his family to know he loved them, that he thought about them, that he was sorry, and he left his journal because he wanted someone, anyone, to make sure his sacrifice meant something, that the money he guarded went where it was supposed to go, that the secrets he protected saw the light of day. He believed in this country, in service, in doing the right thing, and his country forgot about him. The chamber was silent. Kate saw several senators wipe their eyes. Senator Bradford cleared her throat. The committee has reviewed the documents you provided, the inventory logs, the operation files, the financial records. We've confirmed that Facility 77 was indeed decommissioned in February 1984, and we've confirmed that no formal transfer of assets ever took place. The vault and its contents were simply left in place and removed from active records. She paused, which means legally those assets have been considered lost for 42 years. The question before this committee is what to do about them now. The hearings lasted 3 days. Military officials testified, many of them looking uncomfortable, claiming they had no knowledge of the facility. Accounting experts testified about the value of the assets. Legal scholars debated who had rightful claim to the money. Victims' advocates testified about the cartels and criminal organizations the money had been seized from and the communities still suffering from their activities. And through it all, Josh and Kate sat quietly, watching democracy in action. Messy, complicated, imperfect democracy, trying to figure out how to do right by a wrong that had been buried for 4 decades. On the final day, Senator Bradford made her recommendation. This committee believes the assets discovered at Facility 77 should be placed in a federal trust, administered independently, and distributed to organizations that assist victims of organized crime, drug trafficking, and government corruption. The money was taken from criminals. It should be used to help the people those criminals hurt. She looked at Josh and Kate. And this committee recommends that Mr. and Mrs. Harper be compensated for their discovery according to federal finders laws. 5% of the total value. 5% of $362 million, $18.1 million. The gallery erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Emma gripped Kate's shoulder. But Kate wasn't thinking about the money. She was looking at Sarah Hayes Connolly, who was crying and mouthing the words, "Thank you." After the hearing, they held a press conference. Emma had prepared a statement, but when Kate stepped up to the microphone, she set it aside. "Josh and I didn't do this for money," she said. "We did it because a good man asked us to. Commander William Hayes spent 4 years of his life guarding something he believed mattered, and when his country abandoned that mission, he made sure someone, someday, would finish it. We're just honored we got to be those someones." She paused. "As for the finder's fee, we're donating it, all of it, to the trust being set up to distribute the vault assets, because we don't need $18 million. We need to know we did the right thing, and we need to sleep at night. The money should go where it always should have gone, to people who need it, to people who were hurt by the criminals it was taken from." The room erupted again. But Kate just stepped back from the microphone and took Josh's hand. They flew home that night. Emma drove them from the airport to their house. The news vans were gone. Someone had cleaned up the broken glass from the brick. The neighborhood was quiet. "You know you didn't have to give away $18 million, Emma said as she pulled into the driveway. "Yes, we did," Josh said simply. "Most people wouldn't have." Kate smiled. "We're not most people." Inside, their house felt smaller somehow, or maybe they felt bigger. They'd stood in front of Congress, told their story to the world, made a choice that would affect thousands of lives, and now they were back in their small kitchen with the leaky faucet and the fridge that hummed too loud. "You want some tea?" Kate asked. "Yeah," Josh said. "Tea sounds good." They sat at their kitchen table and drank tea and didn't talk about vaults or hearings or money. They talked about normal things, about calling their kids, about fixing the fence, about maybe taking another trip, somewhere warm this time, somewhere without snow. They were just Josh and Kate again, 72 and 70, married 47 years, no richer than they'd been a month ago, no poorer either, but different, changed in ways they were still trying to understand. The trust was established 6 months later. The Hayes Memorial Trust, named for Commander William Hayes and dedicated to helping victims of the crimes that had generated the seized assets. It was administered by a board that included victims' advocates, legal experts, and Sarah Hayes Connolly. The first grants went out within 3 months, $10 million to organizations fighting human trafficking in Central America, $5 million to community programs in areas devastated by cartel violence, $3 million to legal aid programs helping people recover assets stolen by corrupt governments. It continued, millions of dollars flowing to people and places that needed it, doing the work the money should have done 42 years ago. Josh and Kate followed the trust's work closely. Emma sent them quarterly reports. They read every page, saw every grant, every program funded, every life changed. "Hayes would be proud," Kate said one evening, reading about a women's shelter in Colombia that had received funding. "I think he is," Josh replied. Sarah Hayes Connolly visited them 6 months after the hearings. She came alone, driving up from North Carolina to spend a weekend with the people who'd given her back her father. They sat in Josh and Kate's living room drinking coffee. Sarah had brought photo albums, pictures of Hayes throughout his life. Young and optimistic, middle-aged and burdened, old and tired. "I was so angry at him for so long," Sarah said. "Angry that he was never there, that he chose the military over us, that even when he was home, he was somewhere else in his head." She traced her finger over a photo of Hayes holding her as a baby. "But reading his journals, his letters, I understand now. He wasn't choosing the military over us. He was trapped, caught between love and duty, and he didn't know how to reconcile them." "A lot of people struggle with that," Kate said softly. "I know, but I wish he'd known it was okay to choose us, that we would have understood, that we would have loved him anyway." Sarah wiped her eyes. "My mother died last month." Kate's hand went to her mouth. "Oh, Sarah, I'm so sorry." She was 94. She'd been declining for a while, but before she passed she was lucid, clear, and she told me something I'll never forget. Sarah's voice broke. She said, "Your father was a good man who made hard choices, and now, finally, those choices mean something. You tell those people, Josh and Kate, you tell them they gave me peace, they gave me closure, they gave me my husband back." Kate was crying now. So was Sarah. Josh handed them both tissues, his own eyes wet. "She wanted you to have this," Sarah said, pulling a small box from her purse. Inside was a medal, Hayes's Distinguished Service Medal. "She said you earned it more than he did, because you finished what he started." Kate couldn't speak. She just held the medal and wept. That night, after Sarah had gone to bed in their guest room, Josh found Kate in the garage. She was sitting in their old Honda CR-V, the same car that had gotten them through the blizzard, started this whole thing. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," Kate said. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About how one choice can change everything. If we'd turned back earlier, if we'd never found that fortress, if we'd just taken some money and kept quiet." She trailed off. "But we didn't," Josh said. "No, we didn't." Kate looked at him. "Why didn't we? Really? We're not saints, Josh. We're not heroes. We're just two old people who've struggled our whole lives. Why did we choose the hard way?" Josh was quiet for a long time. "Because of who raised us, I think. Your dad, even though he was gone a lot, taught you about duty, about doing what's right even when it costs you. And my folks, they never had much, but they never took what wasn't theirs. They taught me that character matters more than comfort." He smiled. "And maybe because we've been married 47 years. We know each other. We knew we couldn't live with ourselves if we'd taken that money. Couldn't look each other in the eye. Couldn't teach our kids and grandkids that integrity matters if we didn't have any ourselves." Kate reached over and took his hand. "I'm glad I married you, even though I've kept you poor. Especially because you kept me honest." The fortress became a museum 18 months after they found it. The Department of Defense, under intense public pressure, designated it a historical site. They cleaned it up, installed proper lighting and safety features, but left most of it intact. Hayes's office remained exactly as they'd found it. Journal on the desk, photos on the wall. The vault was emptied of money, but kept open so visitors could see the space where $360 million had sat forgotten for decades. Josh and Kate were invited to the opening ceremony. So was Sarah Hayes Connolly and her family. Military officials attended, senators, the FBI agents who'd first interviewed them, Sarah Chen, the journalist who'd broken the story. There was a plaque by the entrance now. It read, "Facility 77, established 1958, decommissioned 1984, rediscovered 2025, dedicated to the memory of Commander William Hayes and all those who served here. May this place remind us that secrets buried do not stay buried forever, and that integrity, even delayed, is never wasted." Kate stood in front of that plaque and thought about all the ways this place had changed her life. Changed the world, really. The money helping people. Hayes's story giving closure to his family. The reminder that doing the right thing, even when it's hard, even when no one's watching, matters. "Mum?" It was their daughter Emma, standing beside her with her own daughter, Kate's granddaughter Lily, age 9. "Lily wants to ask you something." Lily looked up at Kate with serious eyes. "Grandma, were you scared when you found all that money?" Kate knelt down to Lily's level. "Yes, baby, I was very scared." "But you didn't keep it?" "No." "Why not?" Kate thought about how to explain it to a 9-year-old. "Because the money didn't belong to us, and because there was a man, a good man, who asked us to do something important with it, and because your grandpa and I wanted to be able to look you in the eye and tell you that when we had to make a hard choice, we made the right one." even though you didn't get rich. We did get rich, Kate said softly. Just not with money. We got rich with peace, with pride, with knowing we did something good. That's worth more than all the money in that vault ever was. Lily hugged her. I want to be like you when I grow up. Kate held her granddaughter and felt tears slip down her cheeks. This was why they'd done it. Not for headlines or hearings or history books, for this moment, teaching the next generation that integrity matters, that doing right is more important than doing easy. The museum drew visitors from around the world. People came to see the vault, to understand the Cold War history, to hear Hayes's story. But mostly, Josh and Kate discovered, they came to be inspired, to see proof that honest people still existed, that choosing right over easy was possible. They received letters, hundreds of them, from people who'd been helped by the trust, from veterans who'd served with Hayes, from strangers who just wanted to say thank you for restoring their faith in humanity. One letter came from a woman in Mexico. Her sister had been killed by cartel violence 15 years ago. The trust had funded a program that helped her family recover legally and move to safety. I thought good people were a myth, she wrote. I thought everyone was out for themselves. You proved me wrong. You gave me hope again. Thank you. Josh pinned that letter on their refrigerator. It stayed there for years. Life slowly returned to normal. The media attention faded. The news vans stopped coming. People in their neighborhood stopped staring. Josh and Kate went back to their quiet lives. Groceries and grandkids and doctor's appointments. But they were different now. They walked taller, spoke with more confidence. They'd discovered something about themselves in that vault. Not just Hayes's secret, but their own strength, their own integrity. Proof that they were exactly who they'd always tried to be. One morning, 2 years after finding the fortress, Kate woke to find Josh sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a newspaper. He was reading the obituaries like he did every morning, checking for names he recognized, a habit of the old. Kate, he said quietly, come look at this. She came over. He pointed to a small obituary near the bottom of the page. Former military contractor dies at 91. Robert Morrison served in various capacities during the Cold War and was known for his work on classified projects. Morrison, Kate said, that was Hayes's superior, the one mentioned in his journals. She read the full obituary. It was brief, generic. No mention of Facility 77. No acknowledgement of what had happened. Just a quiet death of a quiet man. He knew, Josh said. When he ordered that facility abandoned, when he told Hayes to walk away, he knew what he was leaving behind, and he never said a word, lived the rest of his life keeping that secret. Kate thought about that, about Morrison carrying that knowledge for 40 years, about how it must have felt when the story broke, when the world found out what he'd helped bury. Do you think he regretted it? She asked. I don't know, Josh said. I hope so. They sat quietly for a moment. Then Josh folded the newspaper and set it aside. You know what the difference is between us and people like Morrison? What? He made a choice to hide the truth. We made a choice to reveal it. He chose easy. We chose right. And that makes all the difference. Kate kissed the top of his head. When did you get so wise? I married a wise woman. Some of it rubbed off. 5 years after finding the vault, Josh and Kate were invited back to the fortress for a special ceremony. The Hayes Memorial Trust was dedicating a new wing of the museum to Commander Hayes's personal effects. His journals, his letters, his photographs. Sarah Hayes Connolly had donated everything. They stood in the new gallery looking at displays that told Hayes's story. His early career, his family, his service at the facility, his struggle with duty and conscience, his final letter asking whoever found the vault to make it matter. Sarah stood beside them, now 67, with grey in her hair and her father's eyes. I used to hate this place, she said quietly. hate what it represented, the secret that stole my father. But now I see it differently. This place didn't steal him. It just couldn't let him go. And in the end, he made sure it would set him free. She looked at Josh and Kate. You gave me my father back. Not the man who left, but the man who wanted to be better, wanted to do better, and couldn't figure out how until it was too late. That's a gift I can never repay. You don't need to repay it, Kate said. Seeing what the trust has done, seeing the lives it's changed, that's payment enough. They walked through the gallery together, stopped at a display that showed the trust's work, photographs of programs funded, stories of people helped, numbers that told a story of redemption, $362 million distributed, 1,200 organizations funded, estimated 115,000 lives directly impacted, countless more indirectly touched. This is Hayes's real legacy, Josh said. Not the vault he guarded, not the secret he kept. This. The good that came from finally doing what should have been done 40 years ago. On their way out, they stopped at the entrance plaque again. Someone had added a second plaque beside it. This one read, Discovered by Josh and Kate Harper, February 2025. Ordinary people who did an extraordinary thing. They chose integrity over fortune, truth over comfort, and in doing so reminded us all what it means to be truly wealthy. Kate read it 3 times. We're not extraordinary. We're just us. That's what makes it extraordinary, a voice said behind them. They turned. It was Agent Jennifer Cross, the FBI agent who'd first interviewed them. She was in civilian clothes now, off duty. People think heroes are special, different. But the truth is, heroes are just regular people who make hard choices. You two, you're the most regular people I've ever met, and the most heroic. We just did what anyone should do, Josh said. But most people wouldn't have, Cross said. That's the point. Most people would have seen that money and justified taking it. You didn't. You saw what was right, and you did it, even though it cost you everything you could have had. That's rare, that's special, that's heroic. She shook their hands. Thank you for proving that good people still exist. I needed that reminder. Driving home that evening, Kate watched the mountains fade behind them. The fortress was back there somewhere, hidden in the peaks, no longer a secret, but still remote, still quiet. Josh, she said. Yeah? Do you ever regret it, even a little? We could have been so comfortable, helped our kids so much, never worried about money again. He was quiet for a long moment. You want the truth? Always. No, not even a little. Because the money would have changed us, Kate. Maybe not at first, but eventually. We would have wondered if our kids loved us or our money, if we'd earned what we had, if we deserved it. We would have carried the weight of that choice forever. He glanced at her. This way we know. We know exactly who we are. We know we chose right over easy. We know we honored a good man's dying wish. We know we helped people who needed it. That's worth more than any amount of money. Even $18 million? Even $18 million. Kate smiled. Good, because I feel the same way. They drove in comfortable silence for a while. Then Kate said, You know what's funny? People think we're heroes, but I feel like we just did the bare minimum. We found something that wasn't ours and gave it back. That shouldn't be heroic. That should just be normal. Maybe that's the real tragedy, Josh said. That doing the right thing has become so rare it's considered heroic. Then maybe we need more heroes, Kate said. Regular people making hard choices, being honest when they could be dishonest, choosing integrity when everyone would understand if they didn't. I think you just described the world I want to live in, Josh said. Me too. 10 years after finding the vault, on their 57th wedding anniversary, Josh and Kate returned to the Cascades for one final trip. Not to the fortress this time, but to a small cabin not far from where they'd originally planned to stay a decade ago. the same anniversary trip, just a decade delayed. They spent a week there, hiking, reading, sitting on the porch watching eagles soar over the peaks. They talked about their life, their kids, their grandkids, the strange, wild journey that had started with a blizzard and ended with them helping distribute $362 million to people who needed it. On their last day, they drove to a viewpoint overlooking the valley where the fortress sat. You couldn't see it from here. It was hidden by the mountains, by design, by purpose, but they knew where it was, could point to the general direction, could remember every detail of those 3 days that changed everything. "Think anyone else will ever stumble on something like that?" Kate asked. "Maybe," Josh said. "The government's been around a long time. Probably lots of secrets buried in mountains and bunkers and forgotten warehouses. Probably lots of people who know about them and keep quiet." "What do you think they should do if they find something?" "What we did. Make noise, tell the truth, refuse to let it stay buried." Kate leaned against him. "Even if it costs them?" "Especially if it costs them, because that's when it matters most." They stood there for a long time, 2 old people on a mountain, looking at secrets they'd helped unbury, thinking about the choice they'd made and all the ways it had rippled out into the world. "No regrets?" Kate asked one more time. "Not a single one," Josh said. "You?" "Just one." He looked at her, surprised. "What?" "I wish I could tell Hayes, face to face, that we did it, that we kept his faith, that his sacrifice wasn't wasted. I wish he could see what his choice to leave us those clues led to." Josh pulled her close. "I think he knows. Wherever he is, whatever happens after this life, I think he knows. And I think he's grateful. And I think his daughter is at peace, and his wife died knowing her husband was a good man. And that's more than most people get." "Yeah," Kate whispered. "Yeah, it is." They drove home the next day, back to their small house with the mortgage finally paid off, back to their routines and their family and their simple, honest life. They'd been offered book deals and movie deals and speaking tours. They'd turned them all down. This wasn't about fame. It was never about fame. It was about a promise made to a dead man, a choice between right and easy, a reminder that integrity matters even when no one's watching, especially when no one's watching. Kate kept Hayes's photograph on her dresser, the one Sarah had given her. She looked at it every morning. Young Hayes smiling before the weight of secrets settled on his shoulders. She'd think about him, about the price of duty, about the cost of doing right when the world makes it easier to do wrong. And she'd remember that she and Josh had chosen right. Not because it was easy, not because it made them rich, but because it let them look themselves in the mirror. Let them teach their grandchildren about integrity. Let them sleep at night knowing they'd done what they could with what they'd been given. On their 60th wedding anniversary, their children threw them a party. 50 people crowded into their backyard. Family, friends, people from the neighborhood. Even Agent Cross came, retired now, bringing wine and warm hugs. Michael, their son, gave a toast. "Mum and Dad, you taught us a lot over the years. How to work hard, how to be kind, how to persevere. But 10 years ago, you taught us the most important lesson of all. You taught us that who we are matters more than what we have. That integrity isn't just a word, it's a choice we make every day. You could have been rich. Instead, you chose to be right, and that made us richer than any money ever could." He raised his glass. "To Josh and Kate Harper, the most ordinary, extraordinary people we know." Everyone drank. Everyone cheered. And Josh and Kate, 77 and 75 now, held hands and smiled and felt the weight of a choice well made. Because anyone can take what's not theirs when no one's watching. Anyone can justify greed with need. Anyone can choose easy over right. But some people, regular people with greasy hands and modest dreams, some people choose different. They choose truth. They choose integrity. They choose to finish what others left undone. And those people, those beautifully ordinary people, they change the world. Not with weapons or wealth or power, but with something simpler, something rarer, something that a dying man in a vault once believed still existed. Honest hearts and the courage to do what's right when everything in the world makes it easier to do what's wrong. As the party continued around them, Kate leaned over to Josh. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think we had a pretty good life. Not perfect, not easy, but good, honest, meaningful. We raised good kids. We helped people we'll never meet. We honored a good man's dying wish. We did right by each other for 60 years. That's not nothing, Josh. That's everything." He kissed her forehead. "Yeah, that's everything." Somewhere in the Cascades, buried in a mountain, a fortress stood guard over emptied vaults and revealed secrets. People visited every day, learned Hayes's story, saw proof that even after 42 years, truth finds a way, integrity finds a path. Good people, when given the choice, sometimes choose good, and in a small house on a quiet street, two old people held hands and knew without doubt that they'd made the right choice. Not because it made them comfortable, but because it let them be free. Free from regret, free from guilt, free from the weight of secrets untold and promises broken. They'd found $362 million. And they'd walked away from all of it. And somehow, impossibly, that made them the richest people in the world. The end. Up next, 2 more powerful true stories are waiting for you. Click to keep discovering the kind of courage that changes everything. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you believe that integrity, even when it costs you everything, is worth more than any treasure you could ever find.